Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to forge an integral Serbian chef's knife from a piece of massive truck spring just like this one right here. Alright, hold on. Let's get started.
Well, I'll just give you guys a heads up here right from the beginning. This project did not turn out the way I intended or the way I started it. But we're starting out to build an integral Serbian chef's knife. Integral meaning, of course, that the blade, bolster, and tang are all forged from one piece of steel. Not the first integral project I've done by any means, but definitely the first Serbian chef's knife I've done, period. So we're going to see if we can make this happen. I'm switching out the dies on my power hammer from the normal combo dies that I use to what is called a texturing die. I purchased these from Little Giant. The company still exists. They don't make power hammers anymore, of course, but they still provide information and some parts and general assistance to Little Giant power hammer owners. It's a pretty aggressive die, and I expect that it will work great for drawing out large flat blades. So first time I've tried that. That's why I bought them, so we'll see how it works. Got a chunk of this giant truck spring. I believe it's 5160. I was told that it came off of an international truck. Couldn't find any information on it. This is not the first project that I've made with this steel. I forged a giant integral chopper a while back, and that turned out great. So we're gonna see if we can do something else with this here. You can see I've forged out a little block there and created a step down using just a steel rod. You can use some kind of die block, but that's going to provide the material for the blade where we need it. I want to forge in a little bit of the nose down on the edge of the blade, end of the blade there. You could just forge this out square and grind that all in, but I want to forge as much as I can. Taking it easy on the texturing dies here, and so far it seems to work pretty good. One of the nice things about these dies is you don't feel like you have to run the hammer at full tilt, and since the surface area on these dies is so small, it's still moving material pretty effectively. Doing a little adjustment here. My proportions I don't think were quite right starting out on this blade, and you'll see in a minute here, if you haven't figured it out already, that I don't have enough material for a normal size Serbian chef's knife. We'll continue on here, and basically I'm trying to draw out the material in both directions, and it's working pretty good. Making some minor adjustments on the bolster tang area here. Around this period of time, I figured out I didn't have enough material for the size of Serbian chef's knife I wanted, so there we go. We forged out another block, much larger, and do another step down using that die block, and we'll forge in the tip a little bit so that we have a good curve down to the nose going into there, and that's our preform. So I'm just kind of establishing where that bolster is going to start, as you can see right there, and then we'll start forging out that blade. Now this is something you can definitely do with a cross or straight peen hammer on your anvil, just drawing down from the spine towards the edge and moving that material in the direction that you want. Of course, it's going to take a lot longer, but that is what it is. We've all forged a lot of blades by hand. This particular alloy, as I said, I believe it's 5160, but it's stiff. It's stiff. I'm used to forging 5200, which is also quite stiff, and whenever I go back to forging, or whenever I forge a knife or something in something like 1080, it just feels like Play-Doh under the hammer. This, however, does not, and so getting close to having a blade forged out, and I'm just doing some refining here, getting right up close to the bolster so that that material is spread out where it needs to be. As long as you are careful about the direction you're moving that material and you do that preform like I showed earlier, it's not a big deal to get the width of the heel and the material in the blade where you want it. So this is how we're going to get the clean or clear definition between the tang and the bolster. Some shallow or partial cuts on the side and then notch out the back and then forge that material back. Obviously I've got way more than I need for the tang there, and I cut off the excess, which I didn't show. We've got a blade forge and stamp in the Fire Creek Forge logo. There's both of them. So there's the little one and then there's the full-size one. Time to clean up the profiles a little bit. I'm doing this before doing any heat treating. I straightened the blades, but sometimes if you leave the edges all rough and sort of wonky like that, it's easy to miss stuff in the straightening. So grinding a clean edge on things and then straightening sometimes is helpful. Normalizing, grain refinement, and edge quench. And this is not what you want to do with your quenching oil at all. I want to do a differential quench here, an edge quench on these. And so I'm using my Parks 50 really only because it's in a bucket that I can actually do an edge quench in. So this is a little lesson in what not to do, but also how to control an oil fire in your shop, which can get out of control if you're not careful, but you simply smother it. Make sure you have a lid for your quench tank or container, and something that's gonna, not catch fire. So that, that didn't go quite like I was hoping, and I was expecting that to probably happen, but I was hoping it wouldn't. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Well, anyway, I got the edge hard on these, and it is what it is. If this steel is 5160, which I believe it is, it does not need Parks 50. AAA is more than adequate, and that's what I would have used otherwise. You can definitely get that flame out, as you see there eventually. And then just, if I was doing a full quench, that flame wouldn't have happened at all. But it's the vapors of the oil that start to catch fire. And if you've got a partially submerged blade, that's where that's going to typically happen. This is why I don't usually do any kind of edge quench, because burning your oil like this all the time is not a good idea. There's other ways to get a differential heat treat. But anyway, we've got some hard edges and hopefully softer spines and tangs. At least that was my goal. That's the goal. And for those of you who are worried about it, which I don't know if anybody is, it definitely is hard steel. 5160's got about 0.6% carbon and about 0.8% chromium in it. One of the things that chromium does is enhance the hardenability of the steel. So it doesn't need a very fast quench. It also helps keep the grain size small, which aids in the toughness of the steel. And it's starting to make sense why they might use it for things like truck springs. The large chef's knife was a little bit wonky on the edge, and I'm carefully moving that over a little bit. All right, so here we are out of the temper, and look at that. A big old crack right through the bolster area of the little Serbian chef knife. I'm wondering if I can grind the crack out and turn it into a different kind of handle. And that's what I'm trying to do here, but that's just not going to happen. And now I'm trying to figure out how the crack even happened in the first place. Okay, but it gets better. All right, so this is the big Serbian chef's knife. You guys are not going to believe this. I did not have the camera running. I was grinding down the tang. I got this high-pitched vibration going on the belt. Think nails on chalkboard type thing, but like when you get that super high vibration, it literally just snapped the tang off. Getting a little animated here. Look at the ends on that, clean. That crack, there was no crack during the quench or at the time of the quench. And so literally the frequencies of that vibrating steel is what broke the tang off. Now obviously the steel is brittle. I mean it's hard. I tempered them out a little harder than I normally would, and obviously my differential quench was really not successful. And there's some different things behind why that might be. But I've got a tang forged out on this blade. It's no longer an integral, and I'm going to try to make a knife. At this point, both have broken, and I think I can save this one. So back into the quench. We're going to reharden the steel in the AAA quench, which is more appropriate for 5160. And we've got a hard blade again. The whole thing is hard. And we should be able to make a knife out of this thing. That's what I'm trying to do still here. So we'll get this tempered up and go shoot for about a 60-61 Rockwell hardness on it this time. And now I'm going to soften the spine and the tang. And I guess I should have done it this way in the beginning. This is the other way to get a differential heat treat. Temper out the spine and the tang. Now you can do this on medium carbon steels, medium to like 1080 carbon steels. Once you get once you get into the hyper eutectoid steels past like 0.8% carbon, you can run into a thing called tempered martensite embrittlement, which is another subject. So I've got a piece of copper here. It's a PEX ring for your PEX tubing and your plumbing. And I'm going to try to use it for a collar on this handle. This is some bog oak, about, 3,000-year-old bog oak. And I'm fitting it to the tang here. Nice tight fit up. I want to put this copper collar on here and set this whole thing together. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. I'm heating up the copper, and you'll notice that it starts to get a little green, and it's because the copper's starting to burn up and melt and burn up. So I got it too hot, a lot hotter than I needed to, and then I didn't have a tub of water handy to quench that immediately. Another issue is that this bog oak is actually pretty soft. It's not stabilized or anything, and so it's pretty soft, and it didn't really hold on to that copper super well. At this point, I'm wondering, do I continue on? And so I'm continuing on melted copper color, and I'll look at that. That looks like garbage. That's terrible. I'm starting to feel like on Forged in Fire when you have to make a blade, and so you're just gonna keep going until you literally have no time left, and you're gonna keep doing something. So I ended up doing a copper wire wrap on this thing. I don't know, guys. I ended up making a decent blade. The steel's good. You'll see here. I did a little test here. It's a nice heavy chef's knife. You can use it for slicing up meat or apples or onions or squash, whatever. The steel's good. I chopped some wood with a little bit. Like I said, I made another knife out of this steel, and it performed great. It's very sharp. The handle's not what I wanted to make, but I made a blade. I don't know. You just kind of keep rolling with it, and you got to figure something out. So there we go. Got a couple of pins in there. Handle's not going to come off. Somebody will like it. It'll be a cool piece for somebody. So why did that bolster crack through on that little version of this knife? We got to talk about that real quick. I think I know why the big one did, but both of them had brittle, hardened tangs, and so I think this really comes down to the coolant here. Even though I kept them out of the coolant quite a while in that edge quench when I finally did submerge them, there was probably still enough residual heat to harden the steel. Remember, this being 5160 or some easily hardened alloy like that, there's got the hardenability because of that chromium content. There's a possibility it could have had a stress fracture from the beginning. You never know for sure. I could have forged it at too low a heat during the process. I don't think that was it. But unknown steel, not a process that I've used on that particular steel before. So you just have to keep going, figure stuff out. And we made a blade. All right. Appreciate y'all. We will see you on the next video.